Fearscape Media Network, exploring the unknown, one podcast at a time.
Hi, I'm Anna.
I'm Marlena,
We hope you tune into our new podcast, Books and Booze,
where we get a little tipsy and dive into our latest favorite book.
coming to the Fearscape Media Network on April 3rd. Bye. Ghosts in the Attics, Bodies in the Basements may contain graphic, violent, vulgar, or explicit content not suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back, listeners. I'm Anna.
And I'm Lindsay.
And this is Ghosts in the Attics, Bodies in the Basement, a true crime paranormal podcast. But today we have a little bit of a different topic. We're doing a book club.
Woo woo! Y'all know how this goes, but we read a book, and we promised you guys with Gone Girl we weren't going to wait as long.
And we succeeded.
We didn't wait as long, and some people might think we did it too soon, but we don't care.
Because we are fucking excited. We like doing the book clubs, and they're fun. They're a nice little break from...
And it kind of encourages us to read more.
I was about to say from the day-to-day life of, work, podcast, and kids, and dinners, and grocery shopping. So it's so nice to have a book to listen to. Well, I listen to my books.
I listen to all my books.
I don't have time to sit down and read. But thanks Audible for being an option for that. By the way, sponsor us. But with that being said, today's book club discussion will have spoilers. Spoilers are coming. If you don't want spoilers,
you that all the time.
If you don't want spoilers, don't be mad at us.
We tell you guys that all the time. You know we're going to be talking about it because most of the time our book club discussions turn into us just telling you guys poorly what happened in the book and then stating our opinions on it. But
we're like a really bad Cliff Notes version.
GABB notes.
GABB notes. Yes.
But today, actually, the book club discussion is going to be a little bit different. And that's mostly just for the fact that this is our very first time that we're doing a repeat author.
Yes.
MELANIE GOLDING.
So excited.
We haven't done very many books at all because we've had A Simple Favor, Little Darlings, and Gone Girl.
So this is our fourth book.
Did we have another book?
I don't know. I mean, there's a real possibility. Simple Favor was our first. Little Darlings was the second. Gone Girl was the third. And the book we're covering today by MELANIE GOLDING, and it's really good.
And with all the book options out there that are in the vein of paranormal or crime, it kind of says a lot that we came back to an author that we've already read.
Absolutely. Man. I mean, coming back to an author that you've read before, you never know what you're going to get. But what can I say about Miss MELANIE GOLDING? Well, aside from, wow, such talent.
Yes.
She does such a wonderful job of blending domestic drama and suspense with intriguing folklore. I mean, hello.
Y'all remember Little Darlings?
Right.
The entire time you were like, is it changelings? Is she just having postpartum depression and anxiety? Like, it's so meshed together perfectly.
And it goes so well. It goes so well with our podcast being true crime and paranormal.
Exactly.
So, that being said, I thoroughly enjoy her books and find the way she blends the twists, the turns, the ins, the outs, and pulls it all together to be just absolutely fascinating. I mean,
yes.
Wow.
I absolutely agree with you. I guess I didn't even think about the fact that this sort of genre could exist, where it is that suspense and thriller of real life, where it's like realistic fiction, but then also it's not realistic because there's changelings and there's the stuff in the hidden that we'll get into later. And like, You know what I mean? Like, I didn't realize how much my brain needed that genre, and Melanie Golding's books is just perfect for that.
Yeah, I mean, there are books that I've read before that are similar, like Harry Potter, where it mixes magic and the reality, and then there's
But with Harry Potter, they leave regular society, Muggle society, to go to Hogwarts, where everyone knows about the wizarding world, like Hogsmeade and
right, and the same thing with Percy. The same thing with the Percy Jackson series. He's a regular kid until you find out he's not. And sorry about all the spoilers. Then there's the Chronicles of Narnia where they walk into a magical wardrobe. Yeah. But this is completely different.
To the point where the reader, to the point where the reader can even question, wait a minute. Was it that? We'll get into it.
You might be asking, how did we find out about Melanie in her books to begin with? And I was first introduced to her work with Little Darlings, and I found it one day while I was on Audible scrolling through the thousands of books, probably millions of books that they have available on there. I read that. I love the cover, first of all, and then I was like, oh, I got to read the synopsis. And I was hooked. I knew I had to read it. And thank God for Audible, because it makes, and I'm not sponsored.
We want to be sponsored. They won't sponsor podcasts.
I wish we were.
You all reach out to Audible on our behalf and say, sponsor our favorite podcast.
Right. Audible makes reading easier for the readers who want to read, but are swamped with daily work and family life. It makes it a bit easier. And
ADHD.
Of course, yeah, my ADHD is for real. And of course, it became a GABB Book Club book. We talked about it. We loved it. We gushed. And we're covering Melanie Golding's second book today, like we talked about a minute ago, The Hidden. And we couldn't be more excited.
Yes. And as always, we are hoping you read the book before listening to this, because if not, what are you doing on a book club discussion? But as always, I will read you the synopsis from Amazon. It says, one dark December night in a small seaside town, a little girl is found abandoned. When her mother finally arrives, authorities release the pair, believing it to be an innocent case of a toddler running off. Gregor, a seemingly single man, is found bludgeoned and left for dead in his apartment, but the discovery of children's toys raises more questions than answers. Every night, Ruby gazes into Gregor's apartment, leading to the discovery of his secret family, his unusually silent daughter, and his mentally unstable wife, Constance, who insists that she is descended from the mythological Selkies. She begs Ruby to aid in finding the sealskin that Gregor has hidden from her, making it impossible to return to her people. D.S. Joanna Harper's investigation into Gregor's assault leads her to CCTV footage of the mother-daughter pair from town. Harper realizes she knows the woman almost as well as she knows herself, is her estranged daughter, Ruby. No matter the depth of Ruby's involvement, she knows she will choose her daughter over her career. Steeped in local legend and exploring the depths of what it means to be a mother, Melanie Golding's newest novel is a lyrical and atmospheric folktale for the modern age.
Oh, I have chills because I know what happens.
I know, and can I just say, you all remember me talking on Little Darlings, or if you don't, go listen to it again. I love Jo Harper.
Yes.
She is the human Judy Hopps from Zootopia. Yes. And I love her, and I wanted more of her, and we got more of her.
I don't know. I raced through this book. The Hidden.
Same.
It's a great thriller. It has mysterious and magical twists and turns. I was hooked from chapter 1. I was left wanting to know more. Couldn't turn the pages fast enough, but I don't turn pages because it's on Audible, but you get the point.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean, because I've actually been on an Audible kick, and I stopped specifically to keep this book fresh in my mind. I have read 6 books already this year.
Nice.
Yeah, as of I ended, I don't remember what date I ended The Hidden. Either way, I read a lot of books, which is very unusual for me. As I tell you guys, I'm pretty sure I have ADHD, and I have trouble even with Audible getting into that zone. And I got into that zone, and it's gotten to the point with some of the books, I have upped my Audible speed to 2 times.
Yeah.
And so that's how I listen to The Hidden, because I just could not get enough of it. And so it's on double speed.
Yeah, mine's up there too, not as fast, but getting there.
I was at 1.75 from Gone Girl. I mentioned how I could not stand Nick or Amy, and turning up the speed
made them
like I said, it was not anything against the narrators. It was the character traits, having to listen to them talk so slowly, because they were insufferable.
Yeah.
And so I've just since upped more and more, and now I'm at 2 times speed.
Nice.
And I will say, just like a sidebar before we get more into the story, like talking about the hidden as we do, on the topic of listening on Audible, this book, we mentioned it with Little Darlings, how it has like the cool quotes and stuff, and like, but like they do it with the filtered voice.
Yeah.
And stuff about the changelings. The hidden is very similar in that, but there's singing.
Oh,
and it's like a little folk song, and like, oh my god, like hearing it even at 2x speed, like I need to go back and listen to it at original speed to get like the real effect of it. It's
haunting.
Beautiful. It is beautiful. So for that reason alone, get this on Audible specifically.
It's hauntingly beautiful. I was personally left wanting to know what happened to Leonie. Like, is she safe? Will she be safe? Will she be happy? Will this completely fuck her up in life? And The Hidden is a Celtic myth because of the Selkies, obviously.
Right.
A psychological thriller. And it has a dash of magical fairy tale vibes. And I love fairy tales, aka go listen to Fairy Tale Fix.
Shout out to them. They don't know we're doing that. Shout out.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, like, if you like fairy tale stuff, listen to Fairy Tale Fix.
Yes, absolutely.
This is set in a modern day backdrop of a modern day coastal town. And that's not typical of a lot of like folklore, fairy tale.
They're usually historic.
Magical things like that. They're historic. So the opportunity to read and essentially give somewhat of a review of The Hidden for this podcast. I've been in love with her writing since Little Darlings, so much that when we had the chance to read this, we jumped at it and dove right into another epic read.
So it's actually really funny how we found this book, because we already told you how we found Little Darlings.
It's more than a little funny. It's actually almost embarrassing.
It is almost embarrassing, but this is what we do for you guys. Okay.
Share, be cringed secondhand.
Yes. Or love it and want and aspire to be like us.
I aspire to be like Stefan, and you'll see why in just a moment.
So, okay. Like I said, it's really funny. So I'm out running errands one day, and I got a notification on my phone, and I look, and it's from Facebook, and it says, Melanie Golding liked your page, Ghosts in the Attic's Bodies in the Basement, ... Like to go check your stats and like all that. And I was like, Melanie Golding. Melanie Golding, why is that familiar? Melanie Golding. Oh my God, Little Darlings by Melanie Golding. And I was like, oh my God, what? And I even opened up the Audible app to prove like the spelling was the same.
Yeah.
And I'm like freaking out. I rushed home so I could get on my computer. And like, I'm like, how do you see who liked your page on Facebook? And like all this, because like I don't understand how like the pages aspect works very well.
In your defense, Facebook changes something every other day. So how are we supposed to know?
And so, admittedly, I did some Facebook stalking, and of course, I video called Anna as soon as I got home, and we were freaking out, like, oh my God, is it her?
Right.
And I'm being generous for your all's ears. We were screaming,
but I mean, banshee cries.
And we were like, what if it's her? What if it's her? It's not her. It's not her. No, there's no way. And we click the profile, and what do we see? A picture, The Hidden by Melanie Golding. And we're like, well, what are the chances there's two Melanie Goldings that are an author? And so we go to Amazon and cross-reference, and what do you know? It is her.
So that being said, she found us, and that is impressive as fuck in general, because we're just now past our 1 year mark. Like, if you hadn't listened to our birthday bash, go check it out. It was really awesome.
Really cool.
And if you're new to the podcast, go listen to our entire back catalog. We hope you enjoy it. But if not, thank you for coming to this episode regardless. But yeah, the fact that a well-known author, like a big author, like me and Lindsay, we write books. We self-publish.
But like she's on Audible.
She's on Audible. There's a huge difference there. And so the excitement was building, and we're like, what the fuck do we do? What do we do?
And we excitedly rushed to Stefan and Josh, our network runners. We talk about them all the time. We love them. And we're like, oh my God, Melanie Golding liked our page. We covered Little Darlings on the book club. And I go, message her. And say what? We Facebook stalked you and screamed like crazy people.
Right.
And they encouraged us. They're like, no, just reach out.
She's
like,
a normal person.
And they're like, she's a normal person, just like everybody else. Like, we reach out to people all the time. Hey, remember when they hooked us up with Jeff Mudgett? Like, yeah, they reach out to people all the time. But they encouraged us, just reach out and see if she would like to be on the show sometime. And wouldn't you know it, she immediately agreed.
I know, it's wild. I mean, every time we have a guest on the show, I feel like I have never been more excited. But this time, the excitement is unreal because in just a few moments, Melanie Golding herself will be on this show with us. How exciting is that?
It is like such a dream, not even just because like we have this podcast and we feel like it's growing and all of that. And like we have this wonderful opportunity and pleasure of getting to have a guest on yet again. Like it's always great to have guests on, but as writers, getting to talk to a successful author is just like, I
mean, not even just like talking to anybody else on the podcast is so surreal to us because it's just me and you all the time doing everything.
Mm-hmm.
So when we get a guest, it's exciting and it's fun and it's thrilling. But to have someone on the show that we aspire to be like,
Exactly.
because we enjoy their talent, and it's just surreal. And it is our greatest pleasure to introduce to you all today the author of Little Darlings and The Hidden,
Melanie Golding.
All right, we are joined with Melanie Golding. Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, really excited to be here.
We are so excited that you are here.
Yeah, we had absolutely no idea that just because our network runners were the ones who were like, you just need to message her. And we're like, and tell her what we Facebook stalked her and like freaked out that she liked our page. And we were like, okay, fine, we'll do it. And I'm glad we did.
I mean, we only reworded the message to you like 18 times before the final draft.
Oh, that's cute. I mean, I'm glad you got in touch.
Yeah. It's what they told us is she may be important, but she is still just a person. And I was like, that's true. Because I mean, you are just a person. You just are a really cool person. So it was a little, nerve-wracking. I was like, how do you talk to cool people? Like, I don't know.
I'm a nerd, honestly.
I like nerds, though. I think they're the coolest people of them all.
Yeah, me too. I think nerds are cool. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's cool in their own right, but I feel like if you can write really kick-ass novels, you're pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
I can't take compliments. I'm really not good at it. I'm just.
I'm not good at it either. I'm just like I divert and I'm like, oh yeah, the weather, yeah. All right. So speaking of the fact that you write really kick-ass books, I'm always curious on how and when someone gets the urge to put pen to paper, so to speak. Nowadays, it's more like fingers to keyboard. For me, I was always listening to Lindsay talk about her writing, and I was like, giving her a pep talk one day. I was like, you need to write more. You need to write more. You can do it. I believe in you. And she was like, you're a writer too. You just don't practice. And I was like, whatever. And that was like 3 years before we ended up writing our first novel together. And I was 28 when I got like the knowledge that I was capable of doing something this impressive to some people. And like, I feel like my writing's not that impressive because, well, nobody buys it, but some people do occasionally. But I'm really proud of myself, but it took me a really long time to get there. So how long have you been writing and when did you start?
Yeah, good question. I mean, writing it's like an illness, isn't it? It's like
It is.
a compulsion. Yeah. You can't really stop yourself. If that's what you're going to do, you're going to do it. So, yeah, always writing, always in various ways writing, because I originally trained as a musician.
Oh, so that's exciting.
Yeah, so I've been writing songs for forever, but also prose. And I when I was younger, I thought, oh, one day I'll write a novel. But at the moment, I'm not clever enough. That was what I thought. And then it got to when I was like late 20s, 30, probably 30. And I just thought, well, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to be clever enough to do it, So I just kind of had to, it's a case of like bums on seats, really. And so, yeah, you guys are younger than me. So you got all the time. I'm 43 this year. My first novel was published when I was 2019, so 30. I think I was 37 when it was bought. which felt like I felt ancient at the time. You feel like time's running away, but really it's like there's no time better than now. Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
I mean, Lindsay told me something really interesting about Chuck Palahniuk. Do you want to share that with her and our
Oh, yeah.
listeners?
Chuck Palahniuk, he's like one of my all-time favorite authors. He had all sorts of odd jobs. Like he was like, I think, a diesel mechanic when he wrote Fight Club. And he was, I can't remember the exact age, I believe around 40 when he wrote Fight Club. And then now he has all these books, this huge career, this huge catalog. And so it's really never too late to start, even if you've been doing it on your own your entire life, but to put yourself out there. And you don't have to put your stuff out there to be read by other people, but like you said, there's no time like the present to just do it.
Yeah, but I mean, you guys have got novels out there, haven't you? Because I've been Googling you. Yeah.
We're self-published through Amazon, because I literally don't know how in the hell you get a book published through a publishing house.
A lot of rejection, which I cannot handle.
Yeah. But we wrote Lost and Grey together in, what was it, 2017. And then we both have a collection of short stories each separately. And then I wrote a novel, and it came out last year, called The Dedication. And it's kind of wicked, literally.
And then I wrote, or I guess I rather put together, because there's stuff I'd written a lot over several years and new stuff like poetry, prose, just like a combination. And I put that out. When did I put that out? 2020 or 2021?
I think it was 2020. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I kind of forget that book exists sometimes.
We put out one nonfiction book about my daughter. It's a really heavy read, but it's a really important one because she passed away. But we put out a book about her, and that's the only nonfiction we have under our belt. But everything else, we prefer the fiction wheelhouse. That's where we're comfortable.
Yeah. Nonfiction is...
it's a whole different beast.
Yeah. But, I'm so sorry to hear that about your daughter.
Thank you.
But I know that like writing about stuff is definitely a way of working through feelings.
Yeah. It's very much therapy, but it's free because you're doing it all by yourself.
That's right.
Yeah, that's actually, I used to say back whenever, it's around when we wrote Lost and Grey, and we were talking a lot about it, and we're like, how do we get these like twisted things in our heads to write about? And I was like, we both tend to have nightmares. We both like deal with like the anxieties of life and everything. I was like, so writing it is exercising your mind of it. And that's why like my most recent book, I called it Exercising My Mind, because it's all writings that I did as I was processing hard things in life.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's the only way to say it, is you're exercising all of those inner demons out of your brain.
Yeah, I think all novelists are doing that, and nobody's really writing stories. They're all just like therapizing. That's what I reckon.
Yeah. I really enjoy writing, and it's something that some people don't realize, like, oh, you're just writing. Like, oh, what have you written lately? Literally a sentence. Like, it's not easy. It's some days it comes and the dam is broke and it just, all the words come out. And then the faucet is dripping some days. There's just, you don't know what you're going to get.
I know for me, when I struggle with writing, something that really like inspires me is music. Like I have like certain playlists for certain stories. So, Melanie, like, what inspires you, like, to get writing?
I'm so kind of in the groove now that I just that's like what I do. I kind of get up and then I sit down and do some writing. But it's interesting you say that about music, because I know a lot of people that have to write with the music on, whereas if there's any music on, I don't know if it's because I'm a musician or just because I'm really easily distracted, but I can't have any. It's got to be silent, otherwise I'm just listening to the music. It can't the background thing. I did once when my kids were being really noisy, like there was some kind of family fight going on. I had the sea is when I was writing The Hidden. There's like like a 20-minute long YouTube video of just the sea, and I had that on, and that was all right. But if it's got instruments or words or anything, I can't. It's no use to me.
I've noticed that sometimes when I'm listening to music and I'm typing, like it'll be for work or whatever, but even if I'm just writing a story, sometimes I'll start writing the lyrics and I'm like, wait, no. Because it's just instinctual to just, oh, I heard this.
Yeah.
Right,
And
yeah.
so sometimes it is kind of a pain in the butt.
What I usually do is like I'll sit there. I literally the other day actually I had a ice cream and I was just sitting there eating my ice cream, listening to the music, and then like I would like pause it and then go write, and then I would turn the music back on and just eat my ice cream and think about the plot and then go write the next thing.
Yeah. So, are you a big reader as well as a writer?
Yeah.
What's your favorite book?
Well, that is, that's too big.
It's hard.
It's a loaded question for a reader.
It is.
I guess I could tell you, and also it changes day to day. Like
yeah,
different
absolutely.
Yeah, when you read a new book, it's like your absolute new favorite thing. Yeah.
Although, as I get older, I do tend to forget more the ones I've just read, whereas the books that I read when I was in my teens, I still think about those. So I guess I've actually written down 3. So,
I like that.
Yeah, so I've got Beloved by Toni Morrison, which was just, it blew my mind when I read that. I imagine it blew everyone's mind. Because, it's like the horror in that it's not just the kind of actions and the ghostly stuff, but also it's like slavery and all those huge, great things that she deals with so well, and it just made a real impact on me when I think I read Beloved when I was about 12. So that was very influential, definitely. And then I've written down because when I was a kid I would read a lot of Stephen King and who's that guy who wrote The Rats? James. No, see, I've got an old lady brain. I can't remember the names of people. But out of Stephen King's books, the one I love Stephen King. Yeah. The one I always think about with him is Needful Things. I don't know why, but it's just the idea that this person kind of comes into a community, gives you what you need, and then what you think you need is actually this evil thing that is going to kill you. I really that chimed with me. I have no idea why. And then book number 3 that I think that I really love is kind of a bit of a obscure one. Maybe it's called The Collector by Tibor Fischer, and it's narrated by a bowl, like an ancient bowl. You have to read it to like.
Yeah,
I haven't heard of that one.
I haven't heard of it, but it sounds interesting.
Yeah, I think it's to do with the voice. It's just really funny. It's just very entertaining. So yeah, long answer to a short question. What's your favourite book? Come on, you have to do it.
Honestly, that's so tough. But if I really had to pick, it's not a book, but it's a short story in a book, and it's 1408 by Stephen King.
Okay, yeah.
It's just so damn eerie.
Yeah.
And it's so sad. And I relate to it way too much. Like, he loses his kid, and I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense now why I gravitate so heavily towards that, as it's relatable content. But what about you, Linz?
This feels like such a hard question because my brain automatically goes, what's the last book you read? But if I had to pick one, because it's like Melanie said, like there's no way to pick one book, but for the sake of the conversation, I will say Rant by Chuck Palahniuk, because I don't know if any of you all have read Rant.
No, I'm going to
but
write
it
down.
is. I don't know how else to explain it other than you need a flow chart. Like once it all clicks in your brain, because Chuck Palahniuk is just the master of shock, I feel. And so you think you know what's going on because it's this. There's a rabies epidemic happening, and it all has to do with this man named Rant, but then like it's a futuristic society, so there's people who are only allowed out in the day and people who are only allowed out at night, but then it has like all these twists and turns, and then by the end of it, you're like, I need a flowchart to understand what just happened, but it's so amazing.
Yeah, I it's on my list of things to read, which that list is bigger than I am.
Always. Yeah.
Always. I get on TikTok and I see all these new books and I'm like, no, stop watching book talk. You have enough to read.
Mm-hmm.
I have there's a whole shelf behind me full of books.
I'm running low on Audible credits now, so I'm like, I need to stop.
Well, and that brings us into how we found like your book in general. I found it because you were gracious enough to make Little Darlings free on Audible, and that was so kind of you.
Or maybe Amazon was gracious enough. We know Amazon kind of picks and chooses.
Yeah, Amazon and us had a fight once. It's a whole thing. But that's how we found it. And once I read the synopsis, which by the way, the fact that you can write a synopsis so well for your books, like, wow, because it's really hard. People think like writing the book is the hard part. No, describing the book on the back of the cover is really difficult. So you do an excellent job of doing that, because for us, I think it took me a week to write like a paragraph for a synopsis. It's complicated.
Every synopsis I've written, I have like called my dad and been like, help me. And he helped me like sentence by sentence.
But that's how we found it, was on Audible. And we loved Little Darlings so much. And then when we found out, I
always tell people to read it.
Yeah, when we found out that there's the hidden, like, oh yeah, we were definitely in. So, what part of the book did you have the hardest time writing, and which was the most fun?
I do have an answer to this, but I just wanted to sort of correct that bit about the synopsis, because I didn't write the synopsis.
Oh,
this is a publishing secret. Shh, don't tell anyone.
Oh. Okay.
But my editor helped me with that. So it's when you have a trad deal, sometimes those really, really difficult things that you're right, writing a synopsis, it's a nightmare. I mean, I have real trouble with it. And thankfully for that one, my editor was there to help me to craft it, because she had like a real eye for pulling out the interesting bits that people needed to hear in order to want to pick the book up, which is, I think it's a different skill to writing long form, because I don't have
absolutely.
it.
Well, writing a synopsis, like, you don't want to give too much away.
Yeah.
You want it to be interesting enough to grab the attention.
You have to give enough detail to make people know that it's not a waste of their money and time. So it's just like a hell of a chore.
Yeah.
Although I will
really
say,
I
will say I do go into a lot of books that are recommended to me blindly.
Yeah.
And because I don't want to know anything that's happening, and sometimes I'm like, oh no, that just spoiled it for me if I read a certain detail on the back. So a lot of books that are recommended to me, I don't just pick up a book off the shelf and like read it, but like I'll just go in blindly and be surprised.
Also, your covers are very
beautiful.
Grasping. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
And I love that. That people say don't judge a book by its cover. I've never met a person that doesn't. So, you know,
I've found a lot of great books judging it by its cover.
Yeah, you can look at a cover and be like, that looks intriguing. You read the back, that looks good, and it sounds good. And then you read the book, and sometimes it's your new favorite read, or, you know, it's just a one-off that didn't really sit well with you. But I really like your artistry. You do a well-crafted job.
The cover, it's sort of the job of the cover. This is what I think. The job of the cover is to make you like just pick it up and turn it over.
Exactly.
So if you get to the point where you've picked it up and turned it over, then you know that's halfway there. And then once you turned it over, the job of that synopsis is to kind of make you want to buy it. So online it's a little
Absolutely.
bit different, but that's like in a bookshop you go, oh, pick it up, turn it over.
Yeah.
And then,
Well,
yeah.
I struggle with covers. Like with Lost in Grey, I took my daughter's bicycle and her shoe and Trade Secret chocolate syrup to look like blood. And I took that cover. I took the cover for the dedication and for Twisted.
And then that's how it turned out.
Yeah, that's
Oh wow. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, but it's really hard when you don't have like a publishing house behind you to help you with those things. You got to be crafty and come up with your own. So
Yeah.
they don't look as good as yours, but we really did try with ours.
Yeah, well,
Yours are
I
just
thankfully,
beautiful.
yeah, they are, and I'm really, really lucky to be able to have, you know, a team of people that are there to sort all that out, because it would be rubbish if I tried to do it myself, like that side of it. Yeah.
We're very lucky that Anna is a photographer and artist in her hobby time. And so
Yeah,
she helps a lot.
my ADD allows me to have a lot of interesting facets to myself. A lot of hobbies.
I didn't answer your question, which was which part of the book do you have the hardest time writing and which part was most fun? Shall I answer it now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course,
yeah. So I found it the part that needed most sort of work, most sort of nuance, was trying to make Gregor nice, because when I first wrote him, he was kind of in your face, not nice, and it was a case of, well, he needs to be, you know, for this to work,
right?
She needs to like fall in love with him a little bit, and there was no way she was going to, so I had to sort of reach within myself and try and find that manipulative person who can kind of pretend to be something they're not, because I'm quite a open sort of a person. I find it quite hard to do that, so that was reaching into fiction for me, really. So yeah, I found that quite difficult. But then the fun bits, once the book sort of kicks off, like the chase starts and they're trying to find Ruby and Leonie, that I found really fun to write, and it goes quite quickly. Once you're in kind of a fast moving plot, the writing goes quite quickly.
And I just want to give you a big credit on writing a child that sounds like a child. As someone who has wrote a book with a child in it, trying to keep that innocence and that childlike, I don't know, air to them, it's really hard. And you did that so well with Leonie. So I just wanted to give you a little like shout out on that, because like that's not easy, and people think it's easy to write children. It's really not.
No, but I mean, I spent a lot of time, I still do actually, I see a lot of toddlers all the time, because I was a childminder for 10 years and all the kids were that sort of age. So it's good that I've managed to nail that, because if I hadn't, I'd be worried, because I do spend quite too much time with little kids.
Yeah, I think that you did a good job of making her believable to be her age, if that makes sense. Which is a really hard thing to do.
But then while also having those like little red flags of, is she developmentally on track, that Ruby starts to pick up on.
Yeah.
So it's like a subtle is the word I'm looking for. So you were talking about having to create Gregor and his personality. Which of the characters do you relate to, if any?
I would say that I'm always writing bits of myself in. I don't think you can not do that.
Oh, absolutely. We talk about that all the time.
Yeah. So the characters, Joe and Ruby, and to an extent Steve Atkinson, they're all aspects of me at various points in my life, I think. So yeah, Ruby's representing that stage of life when you're kind of younger, uncertain, you know, insecure, those sort of little bits. And then Joe is a bit older, bolshy, having been through a lot. You know, she doesn't really care what people think. And then, Steve is representing, I guess, the more kind of like masculine aspects of my personality as well. Yeah. Yeah, good question, by the way. Good question.
Well, we wanted to ask you some questions because we wanted to get to know you, but also we want our listeners to get to know you because I mean, when you listen to interviews, they're usually really like rough and dry and scripted and they're no fun. So we want it to be different. We want it to be a laid back, casual like conversation with a few questions thrown in here and there.
To get the
Um
conversation going.
yeah. So a minute ago you had mentioned that Gregor was completely different. I actually, when I wrote the dedication, it was from the viewpoint of a man. And then I didn't like that. So I rewrote the entire book, which was daunting and probably the best decision I made to make it from the viewpoint of a woman. So you said that you changed Gregor a bit. Were there any other significant plot changes from the original draft?
I had quite a few slightly experimental chapters where the objects were speaking. And I'm always trying to do this. It never makes it through to the final edit. And I think it's that book I mentioned earlier to you,
Yeah.
where it's from the perspective of a bowl. And so I quite like the idea that objects are sitting there thinking stuff about you. So there's a kind of a taste of it because quite early on in the book, there's a chapter entitled Bathwater. And that chapter was very much written from the perspective of the water as a being. I mean, you don't kind of get that as you read it now, but it was like I had the water thinking stuff about being water and how it was, like dribbling through the floorboards and mixing with the blood and everything. And then I also had a chapter from the perspective of the shell. There's a big shell on the side of the bath, and the shell had stories to tell. And that didn't make it in either. And I also had the boat. So when they're on the boat, they're on the narrowboat, escaping very slowly, the boat is thinking stuff about what's going on, and it sort of narrates a couple of chapters on its own. But yeah, so I wrote a lot more of this book than actually exists, but I think that's always the case. And it was just a case of having these editorial conversations where it's like, is this going to turn your book into a much weirder book?
I would have loved that. I think that stuff sounds so interesting.
Yeah.
You know what you could do, just for, giggles? You could always write a book of shorts and make it like from objects' perspectives, like
That'd be really cool.
A fly on the wall, so to speak. But it would be really cool. I would read the hell out of that. Let's be real. I'll read anything you write. It's fantastic.
Oh, that's kind of you.
One of the things that we loved about Little Darlings, and The Hidden did it as well, is how there's like the little snippets from about like the folklore at the start of the chapters. And we know as writers that some topics just come naturally to you and you just know those things, but then other things require a lot of research to get it just right. Did The Hidden require a lot of research, or was it things you just knew and you had to go find the sources, or how did that go?
I read a lot of folk tales just like for fun, and the Selkie one came up, and for some reason I just liked it. And when that happens to me, I always think, well, there must be other versions of this, because this is always the case with folklore. Stories across the board, and they appear in different cultures at different times, like the retellings. And it's hard to know the source of any of them, really. But I did quite a bit of research into the Selkie stuff. And the audiobook, did they have the author's note at the end where I'm talking about all the research? I mean, the Selkie stuff. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
No, I did not.
That's disappointing.
Now I feel ripped off, Audible.
So that there is an author's note that goes into it a little bit, but obviously people listening to this won't have read that either. But so I found this story, and then I went and looking for all the other versions, and it turns out they tend to originate in the same like area of the world, where a seal is Scandinavian countries, Iceland, Shetland, and the Outer Hebrides, that sort of ocean. And that was really interesting. So I had this idea that maybe, the origins of folklore, unknowable, obviously, but your mind starts working and you think, well, maybe Selkies is based on something real that happened in real life, which is either seals that turn into women, obviously. That's one option. And the other thing is that it could be a person who looks different, and maybe from another culture. So if you imagine, if you're a Shetlander and then someone from Iceland appears on the beach looking quite different to you and not speaking your language and dressed in sealskins, for instance, you might think, because of the kind of magical thinking that was prevalent at the time, that they had been a seal and they just turned into a person. So maybe the origins of the folktale came from that. And that's what kicked it off, really, the whole thing. So then I'm thinking, oh, well, then basically it's a story about a woman who's kept captive in the way that women have been over the centuries by men.
You did such a good job of making Gregor believable in a way that he could be lovable, which is weird because once you get later in the book, you're like, whoa. But he's just like a very big covert narcissist, and you did an excellent job of portraying that. And you do this in The Hidden and Little Darlings. You mix crime, mystery, and supernatural. And the lore is, there, but there's just enough skepticism to leave the reader wondering, is that exactly what happened? And obviously, we on our podcast, we're true crime paranormal podcasts, and these are two topics that really interest
we have major
us.
interest in.
Yeah. So, did you intend for the books to turn out that way, or was it kind of just
that
like an
perfect balance?
Yeah.
Or...
Was it just kind of like a fluke that just keeps happening?
Yeah. So yeah, it's supposed to be. I mean, I'm quite interested in like the. I guess it sounds a bit kooky, but like these kind of the edges of perception, where logic runs out, and science doesn't count, and like people believe things about the world and the universe that might be true, but there's no way of knowing. And there's quite a big like thought experiment that we're all living in a world that's created by our minds, and then, and that we have a consensus about what the world is, but actually if we started thinking differently, the world would look different. Those kinds of things, I'm very interested in that. But it means that at the edges of what we think is true or logical, there are things that we can't see, because if you have a mind that doesn't believe it, then you won't be able to see it. So yeah, I'm fully interested in all that. But yeah, I mean, when I was a bit younger, it was all Ouija boards and directed writing, if that's not too sort of satanic, and the stuff that happens around those games you play when you're a kid, they just blow your mind, really. You're just like, well, how can that be? How can that not be true? How can it not be true that is what we think it is? You see what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but true crime, I'm big into true crime. I'm always watching documentaries, and then I have to turn them off when my family come in, because they're like, why are you watching that? It's about someone just killing everyone. Yeah. And sometimes you do sit there and you're thinking, why am I watching this? Like, because this is like the 8th documentary I've watched about Ted Bundy, and I don't even like think it's a good idea to make that many programs about him. But you find yourself
we talk about that a lot here on the podcast, and we've determined that, at least for the two of us, we're so interested by it to try to make sense out of something that just does not make sense.
Yeah.
We cannot comprehend why somebody would kill somebody for fun.
No.
And so you kind of just try to understand it.
Yeah, but really it's really hard to understand it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I do have a major interest in all that perception. But I wanted the books to be books that you could read in more than one way. I guess with the first one, that was my idea, was that she was having this experience that everybody else thought was a psychosis, and she thought was a real thing that was really happening to her. And I wanted to keep those two possibilities going all the way to the end. And it was an interesting conversation to have with my publishers as well, because they sort of thought
there needed to be a proper ending.
Yeah, proper ending.
Yeah.
That's what I loved about Little Darlings.
I
think I might have said that on the episode. I don't remember if I said that on our book club episode, but I was like, I love that the entire time you're not sure if there is a changeling or if she's just dealing with postpartum anxiety, psychosis, like whatever. Like you're questioning the reality the same as Lauren Tranter was.
Yes.
Yeah. And I like that, in each book you do a folklore tied into true crime, but it's still, you write it in such a way that it's so believable that either side could be the fact. And that's a real talent. Like a lot of people try to do things similar to what you do, and they don't do it as well.
I think it is really quite hard and to pull it off. But interestingly, I've had people, talk to me about the book, and they've read it one way and they didn't really even see the other way. So they've come to it with their own preconceptions, and they've kind of read it entirely as a book about
it's almost
psychosis.
like a pick your own adventure type book.
Yeah, and I used to love those.
Those
but
are fun.
I wanted to see all of the things. I was talking about this the other day, and I always wanted to know all of the options. So it would be like, oh yeah, roll a 6 and go here. I'd be like, well, I need to see that, but I also need to see what would have happened if I'd have rolled a 3. So,
yeah.
So now you've created your own where you know all of the options, and you can still just pick within your own mind which is the reality. And for the record, I think Constance was a Selkie. That's my belief.
I do too.
I'm not going to say. So you might need to flag this episode with like spoilers. Oh,
we did in our intro.
We tell every episode, we're like, you should have already read the book.
Cool.
You had mentioned that it's kind of, you write your stories in a way where it can be either way. And that brings me to Jo specifically. Because it occurred to me about halfway through The Hidden that it never says if Jo believed Lauren Tranter in Little Darlings. Or if she's just like, no, something, it's like she had that strong gut instinct where she's like, no, something's not right. I need to help her. And then, so that makes me wonder, is there something about Jo and in turn Ruby where like they end up kind of attracted to these things? Or is it the whole idea that these things are just happening, you just have to change your perspective to see it?
Yeah, well, Jo lives in this world where folklore might be real, basically. She doesn't know that she does.
Right.
I've sort of put her in there, and she's open to it. So she wouldn't say, oh no, I don't believe that. She would never go, oh, that's ridiculous. She's basically just looking around. So I've put Jo in this book as the person who can see both sides. Because I remember, now I'm saying that when I was writing Little Darlings, I got to a point with it. Jo wasn't even in it. And it was all Lauren's story. And I suddenly realised that the story couldn't work. It wouldn't work if you only had Lauren's side of things. You needed someone else, because everyone who isn't Lauren doesn't believe her. So you needed someone to be able to see what was happening. So yeah.
I'm glad you added her. She's my favorite. I said when we read Little Darlings, I want more of her. And then I saw on the synopsis for The Hidden, Joanna Harper. I was like, yes.
Yeah. So you've written about changelings and Selkies. What would the ultimate lore be for you to write about? Like, what's your favorite mythical being?
This is one of those things that changes day to day as well. So at the moment, I am writing the next one.
Oh, yay!
But I can't say too much about it.
Yeah, for contractual reasons.
Yeah, but there'll be like folklore in it, so I can probably tell you a bit
Nice.
about
Can
that.
we get one spoiler maybe? Will Joanna be in this next book?
Oh, do you know what? I can't say that or not. I can't say whether she
That's
will or
okay.
not.
I'm going to manifest it.
We're gonna
Joanna Harper
make
series.
it.
She definitely has a lot more books in her. I mean, there's stuff that I
Oh
need
yeah.
She's a
to work
great
through.
character.
Yeah.
So she needs to go and deal with this thing that happened to her when she had Ruby, right? She needs to go and confront that.
Deal with that.
That guy.
Yeah, that needs to be a book. Like she's going
It does. It needs to be the history of Joanna, and then maybe there'll be like a merman. I don't know.
Yeah, no, there'll be something.
I'm throwing people off the tracks of the new book. So yeah, I was thrilled that Joanna was back in this, and this time around the Selkies just made it so much more interesting, and I love that you always include like a mythical creature, and I find that very intriguing, and I love mythical creatures. I love the twists and turns and how it progresses with flashbacks that are introduced to help the plot. In addition, the multiple viewpoints, I do that with my writing, so I'm glad that someone on a bigger scale also does it, so I'm not like, feeling dumb. My favorite thing about your writing style is the snippets. I think that's so unique because I haven't seen anyone else do it. The snippets of folklore from other writers at the beginning of the chapters. I love that the overall feeling of your stories are just so well crafted and carefully crafted at that. I just really appreciate your writing style. And if you haven't already, listeners, what the fuck are you waiting for? Go get this book.
And I have to say, I'm not sure if you had any say on the audible performance of it, but the song that they sing is beautiful on Audible. And you mentioned you're a musician. I don't know if you had anything to do with that, but it is just beautiful. And I had to make a comment on that.
Oh, yeah, it really is.
It really is. And no, I didn't at all. And I didn't know that they would sing it even, because in the Little Darlings there are songs in that, and folk songs. And they got me in the studio because with Little Darlings, I did a bit of I read out the folklore parts of that. And I thought they were going to get me to sing the songs as well, which I was like well up for that. I was like, yes, I'm definitely going to do that. But I think it was too difficult with copyright of things.
Oh.
And, although I know that the songs are out of copyright, like the songs out of copyright, the actual tune, there's no way of knowing who wrote it. So it's like somebody could come forward and go, well, I wrote that tune. So I sort of offered to make up a new tune, which I was also well up for. But in the end, it was easier not to sing the songs in Little Darling. So it's amazing that they do in the hidden. I think that's great. Yeah.
The first time it happened, I was outside doing something in my yard, and I just like stopped and like rewound and listened to it again. So I was just like, oh, that was beautiful.
Yeah. Did you write that yourself?
Not some of them are folk, and
no, the song that they sing.
Song.
The seal song. Yeah.
No, do you know what that is, right? Iondar is a song that was transcribed from actual seals, right? So the person
cool.
So the person who collected it was standing on a beach listening to the seals singing, okay? And then they were musicians, so they wrote down the notes. And then they started singing it back to the seals. And then it was like a call and response thing. So that song, the words don't mean anything, but it's like it's what they said to this, like their interpretation of it.
That blows my mind.
Yeah.
That is wild. I love that.
Now I have to look up videos of seals and see if I can hear it.
Yeah, but also on YouTube you can find that song as well, like other people's versions of it.
Okay.
If you type in like Iondar into YouTube, you'll find, or Song of the Seals. I think it's called The Seal Woman's Sea Joy.
Okay. Yeah, after we get done recording, I'm looking up seal videos and Selkie songs.
I am now a firm believer in Selkies.
That's wild.
What's also wild, speaking of Selkies, we had never heard of Selkies before, and we came across a TikTok that talked about a bunch of different mythical beings of the ocean, and they mentioned Selkies. We're like, oh wow, that's really cool. Never heard of that. And then it's the next day or later, the same day, we found the hidden.
Yeah,
and we were like, what are the chances? Like, it was meant to be.
The stars aligned.
Yeah.
Okay, I had a couple of notes just like to get more into discussion about the hidden instead of like, I guess, Q&A. First and foremost, and this is my personal opinion, so I apologize if you loved this character. I hated Amy, and I am so glad that Joe and Amy broke up. I was honestly a little disappointed that they were in a relationship because I hated her the entire time in Little Darlings, and then it's like Joe and Amy and my wife, and I was like, no.
Yeah, when she proposed, I literally froze. I was like, wait, what just happened?
I kind of was like, good, bye. Like when they broke up.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that any of my characters are based on real people at all.
No, we don't do that with writing at
Amy
all.
was. No, I'm joking.
We don't do that.
We don't.
But
No.
I mean, I totally get that. Yeah, but she kind of was just. I mean, if you read Little Darlings, she's in it a lot more.
Oh yeah.
With this one, she's there for kind of.
Well,
so
what pisses me off about Amy is that she was only with Joanna so she could get dirt and stories.
Yeah, it's very
and,
self-serving.
Like, it
whereas
wasn't about
Joe
love.
Truly liked her.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not fair. But it's probably because of how much I love Joe that I was like, no, this is not okay for her to be treating her that way.
No. I just think Joe's better off on her own, really.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I can't wait until Joe has her like own solid story where she's the main character.
She's not in trouble because of the budgets when she has important shit to do.
And she finds like a mermaid or something and falls in love, or a fairy. Ooh, that would be fun. Although we got to be careful talking about the fae on this.
The fairies don't like
us.
They don't. No, they don't like it. They probably don't like me. Yeah.
Our very first episode was on Irish folklore, and ever since we did that, we'll
Things
have random
disappear.
items just disappear and never show back up, and we're like, we've offended.
See, I'm treading on thin ice there then, because I've started researching into some Irish mythological creatures.
Oh, I think you're fine as long as you don't talk about it out loud.
Like we just all did.
Yeah. But she's not giving the dirt on what she's looking up. So she's safe. We're not, but she's safe.
But yeah, so that's the you're supposed to refer to them as I can't remember what it is. Like, you're not supposed to use that word, the F word, are you?
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So we apologize.
We apologize.
Special beings.
Special Irish little friends.
Yeah.
I don't know what to call them either. I'll have to look up.
Some people will say we need to make a food offering to them, and then other people say, no, don't make a food offering to them. So we're like, we don't know what to do. We're just stuck here with our items disappearing.
Yeah. Just have to live with it now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. My dish sponge disappeared while I was doing dishes yesterday, and it ended up in my dishwasher. How did that happen?
So, okay. Question that me and Lindsay both had. Did Gregor, well, not Gregor, actually, there's a two-parter. For the life of me, it escapes me. What was the unknown man's real name?
Not Gregor.
Not Gregor. Yeah.
He's called Daffyd. It's like a Welsh name. Yeah.
Okay. I knew it was like, I thought it was like David, but I was like, I don't think that's right. But okay, so is the reason he didn't kill Constance because of Leonie? Or was he prepared to kill both of them?
Well, at the end, he was like, oh, well, I'm going to have to get rid of Leonie too. So why did he not kill Constance to begin with?
Yeah, the thing with him is he's basically sort of entertaining himself always.
That's what Anna thought.
Just doing things. Yeah, until he gets bored with it, and then he'll.
Yeah, that was my assumption. It was all a game, and then when it got too complicated and he couldn't win the chess match, he was just gonna throw the board over type of thing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But he likes a challenge as well. So it's kind
Yeah.
of
Well,
playing,
and
toying with, cat style with the mice.
yeah, Ruby was his challenge. Like,
but Ruby wouldn't fall
and then
for it.
Ruby, she challenged him, and so therefore it became an issue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when they fell off the cliffs, I personally believe, I know you're not going to tell it and run the story for everyone who has picked their own adventure, but I personally believe that Constance really was okay because she is a seal. What do you think, Lindsay? Do you think she was a seal?
I 100% believe, because first of all the seals on the beach while they're having their little fight up on the cliff, I was like, I have written in my notes, I hope the seals and Selkies get him with like 3 exclamation points. And so I do believe that when they fell, she became a seal and it's fine, and they all got him. That is my belief.
Yeah,
good theory. Yeah,
and we both got really like emotional when Joanna showed up.
I started crying when Joanna showed up to like just in the nick of time. Like, yeah, get him.
Yeah, but in a way, she's there, but it's kind of it's an emotional thing because she doesn't really do much in the moment because she doesn't need to.
Yeah,
but she's there, which mattered.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
The fact that she showed up and her and Ruby had such a
falling out,
tumultuous relationship at some points, like the fact that she gave up or could have given up her career over saving her child, like that really
the true testament to a mother's love.
Yes.
To get a little cliche. And I will say, speaking of the motherhood aspect of it, Ruby with Leonie, I might get emotional. My youngest child, I just adopted her in January. And so the whole storyline of Leonie going into foster care and all that, I cried when Ruby was like, oh, Leonie's almost 2. Like, it's time for us to get her. And Joanna had to tell her, like, oh, no. And I was like, because it's such a heavy subject. Like, no matter what the scenario is around it, of course you want to root for Ruby getting Leonie. But you also understand why a family member got Leonie. You know what I mean? And so it's just all around such a heavy thing. And it was really well written as somebody who's experienced a different version of it.
Not only was it well written, it was sweet. And in addition to being sweet and heartbreaking all at the same time, it's really relatable. And you did a really good job of illustrating hardship, but with kindness. Which
Absolutely.
I feel like a lot of people just deliver it really raw and they don't put in any compassion. And I thought it was a really touching moment when they were together.
Yeah, I mean, it did take a while to fully nail that
and
ending.
Then her being pregnant at the end was so sweet. Like the little fish flip, like that got me. I rewound it and listened to it again. I was like, is she? Because like I got too excited and my brain shut down, and I was like, no, rewind and re-listen to the end of it. And so, yeah, the fact that Ruby finally gets her happy ending makes me happy.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it had to have a bit of a ray of sunshine at the end, definitely. In my head, Leonie's happy as well. Like she went to the right place.
Well, they talk about Ruby. You talk about Ruby going to the shore house and leaving the pitcher and the shell for Constance, and it just further proves that she was a good friend and she was she understood. She wanted Constance to also understand that she's okay. Look how happy she was in this photograph, So that was, I thought, another sweet touch.
Which leads me to say, I know you already said you will not say, the steal at the end in my heart was Constance.
Mine too. It was so good. And like it leaves that little bit of wonder. Was it her? And for
100%
me,
it was in my heart.
In my Pick My Adventure, it was Constance. And I'm not mad at all, by the way, that Gregor died. Not a little bit, not even smidge bit. Nope.
In a way, though, those when the criminal dies, it is a bit you're a bit robbed.
Like
justice.
Joanna had talked about, her narration was, it wasn't right that he didn't get brought up on all the charges, and I agree with that. As someone who is a big fan of justice, when there is no justice, you feel robbed. I agree.
But in another sense, having worked in the prison system, you know that sometimes people do things and they get what it should be fair justice, and then they end up like walking out of prison after 2 years for some reason. And when that happens, you're like, well, that's not justice. So
it hits home on like a real level.
Yeah,
I feel that. And well, we really hope that Joe, being a detective on a lot of many more magical cases, will be
magical or not magical.
Yeah, well, you decide. But we that's what we're wishing for, is that more of those books come. But if your new book that you're currently working on is something a whole new beast in itself, I can't wait to read it.
I'm sure it'll be just as amazing, Joe or not.
Wow.
Well,
thank you. Yeah, cheers. Hopefully it will be.
Yeah, and thank you so much. Like a huge thank you for coming on our show today. Do you want to let everybody know where they can find everything you do?
Social media,
websites, anything like that?
So I don't have a website because I'm absolutely rubbish, but you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. So it's MK_Golding on Twitter, and it's Melanie Golding author on all the other places in Facebook and Instagram.
And your books are available on Amazon.
Amazon. They're available on all the Amazons. Yeah, but actually, the interesting thing is that The Hidden has another title in the UK, so you might get confused by that because it's called The Replacement in the UK and it's still on the US Amazon. It looks like a different book, but it's not.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you pointed that out because we do have listeners all around the world, so
including in the UK.
In the UK as well. So that's pretty cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on our show. This
is a dream come true.
Highlight
not just as readers and podcasters, but as writers, to get to pick the brain of another writer who we don't already personally know is just amazing.
And somebody who has reached a level of success we aspire to get to one day. So, I mean, it was really exciting talking to you.
Thanks so much for having me on. I mean, it was really good fun, and I love the podcast as well. I was just listening to your Gone Girl episode.
Oh yeah,
and,
Have you read Gone Girl? It's really screwed up.
Yeah, I have read it. Yeah, and it is. It's really screwed up. Yeah,
it is really screwed up.
It is. I hate them both.
We only like Margot, his sister.
Yeah,
we have a tendency just for some reason to hate main characters.
Yeah.
Not in everything. I didn't have that problem with Little Darlings or The Hidden. Other than Lauren's husband was garbage.
Lauren's he was supposed to be garbage though, right? Yeah. Like that was the intention. Yeah.
A fun fact about Patrick is that everything he does was based on, like, I hope none of my girlfriends are listening to this, based on something a real man who I've been told about has done. Like, so every single thing he does, like, it's like, one person who I vaguely know will have done all of the things that he did. And I just took all of those bad things and put them into one guy, and that's what he is. But it's like, that's
the joy of writing, is that's the best way.
Yeah, like if you want to write a really bitchy character, just remember every interaction you've ever had when you work in retail and write that into one character.
Exactly, yeah. I have a story that's not out in the world yet, but I have a story where it's the person, I call it a parasite, it's because it's like is it a creature, is it not type of story as well. And that parasite character is based off of every person who's like treated me horribly, like friendships and stuff that have gone south. Like it's all of those horrible traits into one person. So I get it completely.
Yeah. it's probably a common thing, but it was really fun to
absolutely.
write him. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fun to pick apart different characteristics of people and roll them all in together from different people into one character. So everyone's like, is that about me? Oh, no, that's not about you. Not entirely.
The shoe fits.
If the shoe fits.
Yeah.
It's also
No.
fun to kind of dive into those personalities that are just so different from your own. And it can be extremely difficult, like you had mentioned with Gregor. But
Yeah.
it is fun to be like, I would never do this, but I can do it on paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and in the dedication, my novel that I wrote solo, it was about a woman who it's not that much of a spoiler, it's in like chapter 2. Her child, there's an incident, and then a demon shows up, and writing a demon is just damn fun, let me tell you. Mine is snarky and sarcastic and just a little
Bored.
bit bored with his afterlife. And so that was fun. But writing the character of Mina, she's a drug addict and an alcoholic. So it's one of those things like not being that myself and having to draw from experiences I've had around me growing up made it a bit easier. But if I was never around anything like that, you would have to base it off of like literature and TV that you'd seen. But yeah, I don't know. It's fun, and it's also difficult at times to write characters so far outside yourself.
Yes, definitely. And it's a thing, it's like a debate in fiction as to whether, how possible it is and how far outside your own experience you can go. And I think with enough research, you can write from any perspective in a way, as long as you're not
Perspective
trying
from a bowl.
A bowl.
I really do think that would be interesting. Like to write I'm gonna challenge myself. That's it. Writing challenge. I'm gonna write from the perspective of a household object.
That is a great writing challenge.
Let's
do it, all of us.
We all, yeah,
well, Melanie's done it.
Melanie's done it from a lot of perspectives, which is really cool. Well, Melanie, we won't take up any more of your day. I know that with the time difference, like you probably want to enjoy
pretty
the rest
well
of
into your
day.
afternoon.
Yeah, you might have things to do, but we really do appreciate you coming on the show and just it was so nice to meet you.
Maybe we can talk again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
maybe when your next book comes out, send us an email and we can have you back on the show to discuss it.
Yeah, I'd love that. I'll do that.
That would be great.
Yes,
well,
we're friends now after this.
Yeah. Yes, we are friends now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
No worries.
All right.
See you then. See you soon.
Bye.
Have a wonderful day.
Have a good
Cheers
one.
on you.
Thank you for listening to Ghosts in the Attics, Bodies in the Basement, a Fearscape Media podcast. Music by Stephen Timperley. Artwork by Laura Ramsey. Find us online at fearscapemedia.com/GABB podcast, or on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at GABB podcast, or email us gabbpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you.